Hello, my friends. I am glad you are here with me today. Have you ever looked back at a moment in your life and wondered, why did I stay so long? There are decisions that we only understand why we were wrong about when we are old. When we are young, we think love is something we have to earn. We think if we just try harder, if we give more, if we stay quiet enough, eventually people will see us. We think family is a fixed point, a North Star that we must follow, no matter how cold the journey gets. My name is Waverly. I am 32 years old, and last week, I finally stopped trying. It happened at a wedding, my sister's wedding. Picture a mansion in Greenwich, Connecticut, the kind of place where the driveway is made of crushed white stone, and the air smells like hydrangeas and money. It was a $15 million estate. My sister, Miranda, was marrying into a family that had been wealthy since the railroad days. The wedding itself cost $200,000. I stood there in my navy blue dress, holding a clutch that contained an envelope. Inside that envelope was a cashier's check for $10,000. I want you to really hear that number, $10,000. For some people, that might be a vacation. For the people at this wedding, it was probably the cost of the floral arrangements. But for me, that envelope represented 3 years of my life. 3 years of missing vacations. 3 years of eating dinner at home while my friends went out. 3 years of wearing winter coats until the lining shredded and the buttons fell off. I saved every penny. I did it because I want to give my sister the most generous gift I could afford. I wanted to prove, once and for all, that I belonged in this family, that I was worthy. I walked up to the registration table, my heart pounding with a mix of pride and anxiety. I gave the attendant my name. He didn't hand me the gold embossed badge that the other guests were pinning to their silk lapels. He reached under the table and handed me a gray card. It looked like industrial cardstock. It had 3 words on it, limited access guest. I stood there, freezing, as my mother leaned in close to my ear. She smelled of expensive perfume and hairspray. She whispered, "That means you won't get any food, Waverly. Don't make a scene." I looked at her. I looked at the gray card. And then I looked at the envelope in my hand. I walked over to the gift table, took my envelope back, and said 5 words that made the color drain from my mother's face. But before I tell you what I said and what happened next, I want to ask you something. If you are listening to this, and you have ever felt invisible in your own home, please take a moment to like this video, not for the algorithm, but as a silent signal that you understand. And if you want to hear how this story ends, consider subscribing. We can walk through this together. To understand why I took that money back, you have to understand the 32 years that led up to that moment. You have to understand the Palmer family. On paper, we look perfect. My father, Gerald, was a mechanical engineer, a good man, quiet, the kind of man who worked at the same company for 35 years and never complained. My mother, Patricia, was a stay-at-home mom who treated motherhood like a competitive sport. And then there was Miranda. Miranda is 3 years older than me. She is the golden child. It isn't her fault, really. She was just excellent. A Harvard MBA, an investment banker in Manhattan. She was the daughter who made my parents' Christmas cards worth sending. And then there was me, Waverly, the junior accountant at a logistics company in Queens. I lived in a small studio apartment where the window faced a brick wall. I went to State University because my parents told me they couldn't afford 2 private tuitions. I accepted that. I thought it was just the reality of our finances. Ironically, 3 years after I graduated, they found the money to help Miranda buy a condo on the Upper East Side. Growing up, I learned to measure love by square footage. Miranda's bedroom was twice the size of mine. Her closet had built-in cedar shelves. Mine had a metal rod and 3 plastic hooks I bought at a discount store. When we are children, we don't question these things. We just internalize them. We think, I must take up less space. That is my role. There's a photo on my parents' living room mantel that tells you everything you need to know. It is a family portrait from 2015. My parents and Miranda are standing in front of a Christmas tree, smiling like they have just won the lottery. They look radiant. I am not in the photo. When I asked my mother about it, She waved her hand dismissively. She said, "The frame was too small to fit all four of us, Waverly. We had to crop you out. Don't be sensitive." I spent years telling myself it didn't mean anything. It was just a frame. It was just a photo. I was wrong. The first time I truly understood my place in this family, the moment the glass really shattered, was my high school graduation. June 2009. I had worked hard. I wasn't a valedictorian like Miranda, but I was on the honor roll. I volunteered at the library. I worked a frozen yogurt shop on weekends to buy my own prom dress because I didn't want to ask for money. The ceremony started at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I sat in my gown, sweating in the gym, waiting for my name. I walked across that stage at 2:47 p.m. I shook the principal's hand. I took my diploma. I smiled for cameraman, a stranger paid to be there. I looked out into the audience, scanning the bleachers for my parents. I knew where they should be sitting. They weren't there. My parents were 300 miles away. They were taking Miranda on a campus tour at Columbia University. She was thinking about graduate school. My mother had told me, "Miranda's future is time-sensitive, Waverly. You understand. You'll have other graduations." I never did have another graduation. That was the only one. The only person in that entire auditorium who came for me was my Aunt Diane, my mother's younger sister. She drove 2 hours from her flower shop in Hartford just to sit in the third row and cheer when they called my name. After the ceremony, she took me to a little Italian restaurant. She handed me a card with a $100 bill inside. "Your mother did the same thing to me once," Aunt Diane said quietly, cutting into her chicken parmesan. "When I got engaged, she was too busy reorganizing her grandmother's china cabinet to come see the ring." I sat there, 18 years old, clutching my diploma, feeling a lump in my throat that wouldn't go away. Aunt Diane reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her palms were rough from working with roses and thorns. "You aren't missing anything, Waverly," she told me. "They just don't know how to see you yet." I held on to those words for a long time. I thought "yet" was the key word. I thought if I just waited, if I just improved, the "yet" would finally arrive. But I have spent 15 years waiting for them to see me. And standing there at that wedding registration table, holding my gray card, I realized something terrifying. They saw me perfectly fine. They just didn't like what they saw. This brings us to the text message I received 6 months ago. The message that started this whole mess. I was at work, staring at a spreadsheet, when my phone buzzed. It was a notification from the family group chat, a chat I was in but rarely spoke in. It was a photo of Miranda's hand. A diamond the size of an ice cube was glittering on her finger. The text read, "Jonathan proposed. Wedding planning starts now." Jonathan Whitmore III. I had met him twice. He was the kind of man who didn't make eye contact with service staff. My mother responded instantly, "My baby, this is the happiest day of my life." My father sent a thumbs-up emoji. I sat there in my cubicle. I typed out 3 different messages. I deleted them all. Finally, I just wrote, "Congratulations, Miranda. I'm happy for you." No one responded to me. But 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived. And that is when I made the decision that would cost me $10,000 and my entire relationship with my family. I decided I was going to buy their respect. The invitation arrived in the mail like a summons from royalty. It wasn't just paper. It was thick, creamy cotton, so heavy it felt like a small book in my hands. The lettering was embossed in real gold leaf, featuring a custom monogram where Miranda's M and Jonathan's J intertwined like vines. A small insert card fell out onto my kitchen counter. It informed guests that the wedding would be held at the Whitmore family estate in Greenwich, and that a block of rooms had been reserved at a nearby boutique hotel. Discounted rate. The card read, $450 per night. I stood in my kitchen, holding that heavy card. My rent was $1,800 a month. That one night at the hotel was a week's worth of work for me. But as I ran my thumb over the raised gold lettering, I felt that old, familiar ache, the desperation to be included, the need to show them that I wasn't just a poor relation. I wasn't just the accountant who lived in Queens. I was a Palmer, too. I made a decision right then and there. I had a savings account. It wasn't much. It was money I had been scraping together for 3 years. I had started it with the vague hope of maybe putting a down payment on a small apartment one day, or maybe going back to school. It was my someday fund. It had exactly $10,000 in it. I looked at the invitation. Then I looked at my banking app. This time will be different, I whispered to the empty room. I will give Miranda the most generous gift I can afford. I will prove to my parents that I am just as valuable, just as successful, just as capable as my sister. I renamed the account Miranda's Wedding. I want you to understand what $10,000 means when you make $52,000 a year in New York City. It means you don't live a life. You manage a survival strategy. For 3 years, I didn't go out to lunch with my coworkers. Not once. While they went to the salad place around the corner, I sat at my desk eating peanut butter sandwiches brought from home. I stopped buying coffee. That sounds small, right? But in the city, coffee is a ritual. It's how you socialize. I cut it out completely. I made instant coffee in my kitchen and drank it black. I didn't take a vacation, not even a weekend trip to the Jersey Shore. When my friends rented a cabin upstate for the 4th of July, I told them I had to work. I didn't have to work. I just couldn't spend the money. The hardest part was a winter coat. My coat was 5 years old. The wool was thinning at the elbows, and the silk lining had shredded near the hem. The wind cut right through it in January. I remember standing on the subway platform, shivering, telling myself, it's for the family. It's worth it. I sewed the lining back in myself with a needle and thread I bought at the drugstore. I wore that coat for another 2 winters. I did all of this because I wanted to see the look on their faces. I wanted to hand them that envelope and see, for the first time, respect in their eyes. I wanted to buy my way out of being the disappointment. 3 weeks before the wedding, I went to my bank. I walked up to the teller window. It was a young woman with kind eyes and bright pink fingernails. "How can I help you?" she asked. "I need a cashier's check," I said. My voice was a little shaky. "For $10,000. She typed on her keyboard, then looked up at me, surprised. "That's a large amount. Is it for a down payment?" "No." I smiled, and for the first time in years, I felt proud. "It's a wedding gift. For my sister." "Wow," she said. "She must be a very special sister. Do you want it in an envelope?" "Yes, please." I took that check home like it was a holy relic. I sat down at my wobbly kitchen table, the one I found on the street and repainted, and I wrote a letter to go with it. I didn't want to just give money. I wanted to give heart. "Dear Miranda, congratulations on your wedding. I know we haven't always been close, and I know our lives have gone in different directions, but I hope this gift helps you and Jonathan build a beautiful life together. You are my sister, and I love you. Wishing you all the happiness in the world. Love, Waverly." I put the check and the letter inside the envelope. I sealed it. I wrote Miranda and Jonathan on the front in my best cursive. Then I did something strange. I'm not sure why I did it. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was the ghost of that graduation day, whispering in my ear to be careful. I took my phone out, and I took a picture of everything. I took a picture of the check. I took a picture of the letter. I took a picture of the sealed envelope. I saved them all to a folder on my phone. I didn't know it then, but those photos would become the most important weapon I had. That same night, my phone rang. It was my mother. Her voice was bright and artificial, high-pitched in that way she gets when she wants something. It's a tone I call the socialite. "Waverly, darling," she chirped. "How are you? Are you getting excited for the big day?" "I am, Mom," I said. "I have my dress ready." "Oh, good, good." She paused. I could hear her taking a sip of something on the other end. Probably white wine. "Listen, I was thinking. Have you bought your gift yet?" I hesitated. "Yes, actually. I have it right here." "Wonderful," she said. "Here's the plan. You should send the money to me now. Transfer it to my account. I'm putting together a large contribution from the family, Dad and me, and I'll just combine yours with ours. We can present it as one big check from the Palmer family. It will look much more impressive to Whitmore's. The heir left the room. Combine it? If I sent her the money, my name wouldn't be on the envelope. It would just be the Palmer family. And knowing my mother, she would be the one handing it over. She would be the one accepting the gratitude. I would just be invisible. Again, Waverly, are you there? I'm here, Mom, I said. I gripped the phone tighter. Actually, I'd rather give it myself. What? Her tone sharpened instantly. The socialite vanished. I wrote a letter. I explained. It's personal. I want to hand it to Miranda at the wedding myself. It means a lot to me. There was a long silence on the line. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the silence of a glacier, cracking. Fine, she snapped. Whatever you want. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stared at the phone. My stomach churned. I knew that tone. That was the tone she used when I spilled juice on the white carpet. That was the tone she used when I didn't get into the advanced placement math class. It was the tone of a woman who had been denied what she wanted. The signs were there. I just didn't want to see them. I wanted to believe that my sacrifice mattered. I wanted to believe that $10,000 bought me a seat at the table. But money can't buy what people aren't willing to sell. 2 months before the wedding, the cracks started to show. And it started with the bridal shower. 2 months before the wedding, Miranda hosted her bridal shower. It was held at the Plaza Hotel in Manhattan. If you have never been to the Plaza, imagine a place where the ceilings are painted with clouds and the chandeliers are the size of small cars. It smells of lilies and old money. I wasn't asked to help plan it. That honor went to Miranda's 4 best friends from business school and 2 cousins from my mother's side of the family. Cousins I had met maybe 3 times in my entire life. But those cousins had wealthy parents. They fit the aesthetic. I walked into the palm court wearing my best floral dress, holding a gift bag that cost me a week's worth of groceries. I looked for my name on the seating chart. I wasn't at the head table with my sister and mother. I wasn't at the family table with the aunts and the cousins. I was seated at table 9. It was in the back corner, near the service station where the waiters stacked the dirty teacups. The other women at the table were strangers to me. They were friends of friends, the kind of guests you invite because the room needs to look full for photographs. I sat there, sipping tea that tasted like flowers, and watched my family from a distance. During the champagne toast, my mother stood up. She looked magnificent in a silk suit. She clinked her spoon against her glass, and the room went silent. She spoke for 7 minutes. She talked about Miranda's accomplishments at Harvard. She talked about her career at the bank. She talked about how wonderful Jonathan was, and how the Whitmore family was American royalty. She thanked the bridesmaids. She thanked the cousins. She even thanked the wedding planner. She didn't mention me once. Not even a thank you to my other daughter, Waverly, for being here. I smiled until my jaw ached. I told myself it was fine. It was Miranda's day. I didn't need a shout-out. But the moment I will never forget happened in the bathroom. About an hour into the shower, I stepped away to fix my makeup. I had been crying a little. Just a few tears I managed to wipe away with a napkin, and I needed to reapply my powder. I was standing at the sink, washing my hands, when the door opened. 2 women walked in. They were deep in conversation and didn't check the stalls. I recognized the voices immediately. It was my mother and my Aunt Harriet. I froze. I don't know why I didn't announce myself. Instinct, maybe. I stayed in the stall, my hand hovering over the latch. Thank God you didn't make her a bridesmaid, Aunt Harriet said. Her voice echoed off the marble tiles. Can you imagine? The photos would have been completely off balance. My mother laughed. It was a light, airy sound I rarely heard at home. I know. Miranda understood immediately. Jonathan's mother, Eleanor, is very particular about appearances. We can't have anything distracting. I stopped breathing. Distracting? The Whitmores would have asked what she does for a living, Aunt Harriet continued. An accountant at a trucking company. It just doesn't fit the narrative. Patricia, we have to protect the image, my mother agreed. This wedding is our introduction to that world. Nothing can go wrong. The door opened and closed. They were gone. I stood there in the silence of the bathroom. I looked at myself in the mirror. Mascara was smudged under one eye. Distracting. That is what I was to them. I wasn't a sister. I wasn't a daughter. I was a distraction. I was a stain on the perfect picture they were trying to paint for the Whitmore family. I should have left right then. I should have walked out of the plaza, taken the subway back to Queens, and spent my $10,000 on a trip to Italy. But I didn't. We tolerate things from family that we would never tolerate from strangers. We make excuses. We say, they didn't mean it like that. We say, it's just stress. I told myself it would get better. I told myself the wedding day would be different. I told myself that once I gave Miranda that envelope, she would see how much I loved her, and she would defend me. I was so incredibly naive. 1 week before the wedding, the final blow came. I was at work when I received an email from the wedding planner. The subject line read, "Rehearsal dinner guest list final." It was a spreadsheet attached to a mass email. I opened it, assuming it was just an informational update for everyone. I scrolled through the names. There were 40 people on the list. Miranda's bridesmaids were there. Jonathan's groomsmen, both sets of parents. Aunts, uncles, cousins from the Whitmore side. Even a few of Miranda's college friends who had flown in early from London were on the list. I scanned the P section. Palmer, Gerald. Palmer, Patricia. My name wasn't there. I read the list 3 times. I thought, surely this is a typo. I am the sister of the bride. I picked up the phone and called my mother. "Mom," I said, try and keep my voice casual. "I just got the email about the rehearsal dinner. I think there's a mistake. My name isn't on the list." There was a pause. A long, heavy pause. "Oh," she said. "Waverly." She didn't sound surprised. She sounded annoyed that she had to explain this. "The rehearsal dinner is extremely intimate, Waverly. It's strictly for the wedding party and immediate family. Jonathan's parents are paying for it, and they are very strict about the numbers." I felt a coldness settle in my chest, right behind my ribs. "I am immediate family." I said, "I am her sister." "You know what I mean," she sighed. "It's not personal. The Whitmores have a lot of important people to accommodate. Board members, partners at the firm. There is simply no room." I pulled up the email again. I stared at the screen. "Mom," I said, my voice trembling, "Miranda's friend Jessica is on this list. She is not family. She is a bridesmaid. She has known Miranda for 4 years. I have known her my entire life. Waverly, don't make this difficult." Her voice dropped an octave. It was a warning tone. "Jessica is part of the wedding party. You are not. We had to draw the line somewhere. Please, just try to be understanding for once. This week is stressful enough without you adding drama to it. Drama. Asking to eat dinner with my family the night before my sister's wedding was drama." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her why a college friend was more important than the sister who had shared a bunk bed with Miranda. But I knew it wouldn't matter. My mother had made her choice a long time ago. "Okay," I whispered. "I understand." "Good," she said, her voice brightening instantly. "We will see you at the ceremony on Saturday. Make sure you are on time." She hung up. I sat in my apartment for a long time that night. I stared at the envelope sitting on my kitchen table. $10,000. 3 years of sacrifice. I wasn't even invited to the dinner. But here's the saddest part. I still believed the wedding day would be different. I still believed that there was a line they wouldn't cross. I thought, okay, the rehearsal is for the elites, but the wedding? The wedding is for everyone. I still believed that when they saw what I had done for Miranda, when they opened that envelope, they would finally feel guilty. They would finally see me. I didn't know that 3 days before the wedding, my Aunt Diane would call me with a warning that would change everything. 3 days before the wedding, my phone rang. It was Aunt Diane. I could hear the familiar sound of scissors snipping in the background. Snip, snip. She was at her flower shop in Hartford, probably arranging bouquets for a funeral or a birthday. That was Aunt Diane's life, creating beauty for other people's big moments. "Waverly, honey," she said. Her voice was lower than usual. I heard about the rehearsal dinner. I squeezed my eyes shut. I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by piles of laundry I was trying to fold. It's fine, Aunt Diane, I lied. My voice sounded thin even to my own ears. It's just logistics. Mom explained it to me. The venue is small, the guest list is tight. It's just logistics. It is not logistics. The snipping stopped. It is your mother being your mother, she said. The sharpness in her tone surprised me. Aunt Diane was usually the peacemaker, the one who smoothed things over. And I need to ask you something important, Waverly. Something difficult. What? Do you really want to go to this wedding? The question hung in the air. Of course I do, I said, defensive. Miranda is my sister. Miranda is your sister, Aunt Diane agreed. But that doesn't mean she acts like one. She sighed, a heavy, tired sound. Patricia, she started, then stopped. Your mother and I grew up in the same house, Waverly. We shared a room for 18 years. I know exactly who she is. And I know exactly what she is capable of when she feels insecure. What do you mean? I asked. Aunt Diane was quiet for a long moment. I could hear the hum of the floral cooler in the background. At your mother's wedding, she said softly, 35 years ago, I was her maid of honor, or I was supposed to be. I sat up straight. I had never heard this story. What happened? 2 weeks before the wedding, she met your father's extended family. They were impressive, not wealthy like the Whitmores, but they were academics, professors, doctors. Patricia felt intimidated. So, Aunt Diane continued, she told me that having her younger sister standing next to her would make her look childish. She demoted me. She asked a girl she had met at the bank 2 months prior to be her maid of honor instead. My stomach turned. And at the reception, Aunt Diane said, her voice trembling slightly, she seated me at the very last table, next to the swinging doors of the kitchen, next to the caterer station. Every time a waiter walked out with a tray of fish, they bumped my chair. Oh, Aunt Diane, it gets worse, she said. When she introduced me to your father's colleagues, she didn't say, this is my sister, Diane. She said, this is the girl who did the flower arrangements. I felt tears prick my eyes. It was the same pattern, the same cruelty masked as social necessity. She introduced me as help, Aunt Diane said, not as family, just the help. Why didn't you leave? I asked. Because I was young, she said, and because I thought if I stayed, if I showed her how good a job I did with the flowers, she would love me for it. The silence on the line was deafening. It mirrored my own thoughts so perfectly it hurt. Waverly, she said firmly, your mother doesn't hate you. Hate would imply passion. This is worse. She simply doesn't see you as useful to her current narrative. Useful, that was the word. Right now, Aunt Diane continued, her narrative is impressing the Whitmore family. She wants to look like she comes from money. She wants to look flawless. And you, with your job in Queens and your rent apartment, you don't fit that picture. You are an inconvenient truth. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. So what should I do? I whispered, do I not go? That is not for me to decide, she said. Then I heard the scissors pick up again. Snip, click. But I want you to know something. I will be at that wedding. I will be wearing a burgundy dress. And if anything happens, anything at all, you won't be alone. Thank you, Aunt Diane. Family isn't about blood, sweetheart, she said. It isn't about whose DNA you share. It is about who shows up. It is about who sits in the third row at your graduation when everyone else is busy. Remember that. I will. And Waverly? Yes. Whatever you decide to do, protect your heart, because they won't. We hung up. I sat there for a long time. The sun went down, casting long shadows across my tiny apartment. I thought about Aunt Diane sitting by the kitchen doors at my mother's wedding. I thought about myself, excluded from the rehearsal dinner. It was a cycle, a generational curse of inadequacy passed down from mother to daughter. But I still had hope. It is a stubborn thing. Hope. It clings to you even when you try to shake it off. I looked at the envelope again. $10,000. They will see, I told myself. When I give this to Miranda, when she sees the check, she will realize. She isn't Mom. She's my sister. She will protect me. I held on to that thought like a lifeline. But life has a way of cutting your lifelines just when you think you are safe. 3 days later, on the night before the wedding, I was in bed, trying to sleep. My bag was packed. My dress was hanging on the door. At 11:47 p.m., my phone rang again. I looked at the screen. It wasn't Aunt Diane this time. It was Sophie Roberts. Sophie was my best friend from college. And by a strange twist of fate, she owned the event planning company that had been hired to coordinate Miranda's wedding. She had been trying to keep it professional for months, keeping our friendship separate from her work. But when I answered the phone that night, her voice wasn't professional. It was shaking. "Wave," she whispered. "Are you awake? Sophie? What's wrong? Is everything okay? I need to tell you something," she said. "And I need you to promise me you won't panic. But you need to know before you get on that train tomorrow." I sat up in the dark. My heart started to hammer against my ribs. "What is it?" "I was reviewing the seating charts tonight," she said. "Final check before the printers run the escort cards tomorrow morning." She paused. I could hear her breathing fast. "Your name was at table 3 2 weeks ago," she said. "Family of the bride. Prime seating." "Okay." But when I looked at the master list tonight, it's been crossed out. Crossed out. I felt cold. "What do you mean?" "It's crossed out in red pen, Wave. And there's a note next to it." "What does the note say?" "It says..." Sophie's voice broke. "It says, guests will receive limited access badge. No meal." I stopped breathing. The room seemed to tilt sideways. "Who wrote it?" I managed to ask. "I don't know for sure," Sophie whispered, "but I recognize the handwriting. It's the same handwriting on the vendor checks." "It's my mother's handwriting," I said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Sophie said. "It looks like your mother's." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there in the dark, clutching the phone, while the reality of it washed over me. No meal. Limited access. They weren't just excluding me from the rehearsal dinner. They were effectively uninviting me from the reception. They wanted me to come to the ceremony, look like a supportive sister for photos, and then disappear? "Sophie," I said. My voice was eerily calm. "Are you sure?" "I took a photo of the note," she said. "I'm sending it to you now." My phone buzzed against my ear. I pulled it away. I opened the message. And there it was, in the neat looping cursive that had signed my birthday cards for 32 years. The handwriting that had signed my permission slips. Guests will receive limited access badge. No meal. My mother hadn't just forgotten me. She had planned this. Deliberately. Methodically. She wanted my money. She wanted the generous gift she had asked me to send early. But she didn't want me. She wanted the check. But she didn't want the daughter. I stared at that photo until the screen blurred. And in that moment, the sadness finally evaporated. It just burned away. And in its place, something else began to form. Something harder. Something like steel. I didn't sleep that night. But by morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Welcome back. There is a specific kind of calm that comes after a heart breaks. It isn't peace, exactly. It is more like the silence after a car crash. The glass has stopped shattering. The noise has stopped. You're just standing there, surveying the damage, realizing that nothing will ever be the same again. I woke up on the morning of June 14th with that strange sense of clarity. The panic from the night before had burned itself out. The tears I had shed over the phone with Aunt Diane had dried up. In their place was something colder, harder. I stood in front of my closet, the same tiny closet I'd had for 4 years, and chose my outfit carefully. I picked a navy blue dress I had bought on sale 2 years ago. It was simple, elegant, conservative. It was the kind of dress you wear when you want to look respectable, but not memorable. I didn't want to stand out. I wanted to be a ghost. I did my own makeup, neutral tones, a light application of waterproof mascara. I told myself I wouldn't cry, but I prepared for it anyway. Then I sat down at my kitchen table and gathered my evidence. I didn't print anything out. I didn't make a folder. I just checked my phone. The screenshot of my mother's text asking me to send the money early. The photo of a seating chart note Sophie had sent me. No meal. The picture of my envelope with the cashier's check inside. And Sophie's contact information, just in case anyone tried to call me a liar. I put my phone in my clutch. Then I picked up the envelope. $10,000. I held it for a moment, feeling the weight of it. It felt heavier now. It didn't feel like a gift anymore. It felt like leverage. I called Aunt Diane. I'm still going. I told her. I figured you would, she said. She sounded tired. Are you okay? I don't know, I admitted, but I need to see this through. I need to look them in the eye. I need to see if they actually go through with it. I'll be there, Waverly, she promised. I'll stay close to the gift table. If you need me, just look in that direction. Thank you. And whatever I decide to do today, thank you for supporting me. Always, she said. I hung up, picked up my clutch, and walked out the door. It was time to face my family. The journey to Greenwich felt like traveling to a different planet. I took the Metro North train from Grand Central. As the city skyline faded and replaced by the lush, green canopy of Connecticut, I watched the houses get bigger. The cars got newer. The fences got higher. I took a taxi from the station to the estate. The driver whistled when we pulled up to the gate. Some party, huh? He asked, eyeing the security team. Something like that. I said. The Whitmore estate looked like something from a magazine. Georgian architecture. White columns that reached the roof. Manicured hedges trimmed into perfect geometric shapes. The driveway was a sweeping curve of white gravel, lined with BMWs, Mercedes, and Range Rovers. I paid the driver and walked toward the entrance. 2 staff members in crisp black vests stood behind a registration table. It was beautiful. White tablecloth, crystal vases filled with hydrangeas, and a neat stack of badges organized alphabetically. The woman in front of me, a tall blonde woman I didn't recognize, gave her name. The staff member smiled and handed her a gleaming gold badge. I watched her pin it to her silk dress. It caught the sunlight. Gold meant access. Gold meant welcome. I stepped up to the table. Name? The young man asked. He had a polite, professional smile. Waverly Palmer. I said. He scanned his list. His finger stopped. His smile faltered, just for a fraction of a second. He didn't reach for the gold badges. He reached under the table, into a separate box. When his hand came back up, he was holding a gray badge. Not gold. Gray. The color of concrete. The color of a cloudy sky. The color of something you are trying to hide. I looked down at it. 3 words were printed in plain black letters. Limited access guest. Ma'am, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. This badge allows you access to the ceremony area only. The reception tent requires a gold badge for entry. I stared at him. I felt the blood draining from my face. I am the bride, sister, I said. He looked pained. I'm sorry, ma'am. I really am. I'm just following the list provided by the hosts. Before I could respond, before I could make a scene or demand to see a manager, I felt a hand on my elbow. I turned. It was my mother. She was dressed in a pale pink gown that probably cost more than my entire car. She had diamonds at her throat. Her hair was perfectly coiffed. She was wearing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Waverly, darling, she exclaimed, loud enough for the people behind me to hear. You made it. The staff member looked relieved to be rescued. My mother's grip on my elbow was tight, painfully tight. She steered me away from the line, toward a cluster of rose bushes out of earshot from the other guests. As soon as we were alone, the smile vanished. Don't make a scene, she hissed. Keep smiling. Anyone watching needs to think we are having a pleasant mother-daughter moment. What is this? I asked, holding up the gray badge. What does limited access mean? She adjusted her shawl, refusing to look at the badge. It means exactly what it says, Waverly. Explain it to me, I said. My voice was steady. I was proud of that. It means you can attend the ceremony, she said, lowering her voice. You can sit in the church. You can watch your sister get married. But there is no room for you at the reception. The words hit me like ice water. No room. Mom, I said, this is a tent. It holds 300 people. You're telling me there isn't one chair for your daughter? Jonathan's parents had a lot of important guests, Waverly, she said, her voice taking on that pleading, victimized tone. Business associates, board members, people who matter to the Whitmore family legacy. We couldn't exactly ask them to give up seats for. She stopped herself. For who? I pushed. Say it. For someone like you. She didn't say it, but I heard it. For someone who doesn't contribute to the image. You could have told me, I said, before I spent $300 on a train ticket and a dress. Before I took the day off work. Would you have come if you knew? No, she said quickly. Exactly. And we needed you here for the ceremony photos. It would look strange if the sister wasn't in the family portrait. I looked at her, really looked at her. This was the woman who had raised me, the woman who had bandaged my knees when I fell off my bike. And now she stood here, in her designer gown, asking me to be a prop. So I said slowly, you want me to stand for photos. You want me to leave my gift on the table. And then you want me to leave before dinner is served? Miranda will understand, she said, patting my arm like I was a slow child. Just drop the envelope in the box, watch the vows, and head back to the train. It's better this way. You wouldn't know anyone at the reception anyway. You'd be uncomfortable. I see, I said. And Waverly? She looked at my clutch. Did you bring the gift? I tightened my grip on the bag. Yes, I said. I brought it. Good. She let out a breath of relief. Make sure you put it in the box before the ceremony starts. The gift table is over there by the east entrance. You want my money, I said, but not me. Don't be dramatic, she snapped. It's not about money. It's about logistics. Something in my chest clicked into place. It wasn't a breaking sound. It was a setting sound, like a bone snapping back into its socket. Okay, Mom, I said. I forced a smile onto my face. It felt tight, but it worked. I won't make a scene. She exhaled. She touched her necklace, ensuring the diamonds were straight. Thank you, Waverly. I knew you would be reasonable. Now, go take your seat. The ceremony is starting in 10 minutes. She walked away, heading back toward the VIP guests, her pink dress trailing behind her on the grass. She had no idea. She had absolutely no idea what was coming. I looked down at the gray badge one last time. Limited access. I pinned it to my dress. Okay, I whispered to myself. I'll play the part. I turned and walked toward the ceremony chairs. But I didn't go to the gift table. Not yet. I kept the envelope right where it was, in my hand. Before I tell you what happened when the music started, I want to ask you a question. If your mother looked you in the eye and told you that you were good enough for the photo op, but not good enough for the dinner, what would you have done? Would you have A. Left immediately without saying a word? B. Caused a scene right there in the driveway? C. Done exactly what I did? Waited for the perfect moment? Let me know in the comments. And if you are feeling frustration building in your chest right now, please share this video. Someone else out there needs to know they aren't crazy for feeling this way. The ceremony was about to begin, and I was about to learn just how invisible I really was. I walked into the garden. It was a masterpiece of landscape design. There were hundreds of white chairs arranged in perfect arcs, facing a gazebo draped in eucalyptus and white roses. A string quartet was playing something classical, something that sounded like it cost a fortune. I watched the other guests taking their seats. They glided toward the front rows. The ushers, handsome young men in matching suits, guided them to their spots. I looked at the chairs in the first 10 rows. They were white wood, elegant, with plush cushions tied to the seats with silk ribbons. They looked comfortable. They looked inviting. I walked toward the front, looking for my name. An usher stepped in front of me. He glanced down at my gray badge. General seating is in the rear, ma'am, he said softly. He pointed to the back. I looked where he was pointing. behind the rows of beautiful wooden chairs. There was a gap of about 10 feet, and then there were 2 rows of metal folding chairs. The kind you sit on at a town hall meeting. The kind that are cold against your legs and rattle when you move. There were no cushions, no ribbons, just cold, hard metal. I walked past the aunts in their silk dresses. I walked past the cousins adjusting their fascinators. I walked all the way to the back and sat down on a folding chair in the very last row. I was the only person sitting there. From this distance, my family looked like dolls. I could see the back of my mother's head, her hair perfectly sprayed into place. I could see my father's stooped shoulders. He was laughing at something Jonathan's father was saying. They looked like a unit, a fortress, and I was the observer watching from the outside. The music swelled. The guests stood up. Miranda emerged from the main house. I have to be honest. She was breathtaking. She wore a Vera Wang gown that was layers upon layers of tulle and chantilly lace. It must have cost $20,000. She looked like a princess in a fairy tale. As she walked down the aisle, I saw my mother dab her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. I saw my father look proud. And for a moment, just a single heartbeat, I felt happy for her. She was my big sister. We had shared a room. We had shared secrets in the dark before we knew how cruel the world could be. But then I remembered the envelope in my hand. I remembered the gray badge on my chest. The ceremony was short. They exchanged vows. They promised to love and cherish. They promised to support each other. I listened to the words family and unity being spoken over a microphone, and I felt sick. They were performing unity for an audience while actively dismantling it behind the scenes. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, 150 people rose to their feet and applauded. I stayed seated. I clapped my hands, but I didn't stand. I couldn't. My legs felt too heavy. After the ceremony, the photographer gathered the families near the rose arch for portraits. This was the part my mother had warned me about. The photo op. Family of the bride, the photographer called out. My mother waved me over. Her smile was tight. Come on, Waverly, she said, her voice dropping so only I could hear. Quickly. Don't hold us up. I walked over. I stood next to my father. Okay, big smiles, the photographer shouted. Click, click, click. I smiled. I had been practicing that fake smile for 32 years. Great, my mother said, stepping away from me immediately. Now, let's get one with just the parents and the couple. Just the immediate family. She didn't say, step out, Waverly. She didn't have to. The way she turned her back to me was instruction enough. I stepped out of frame. I stood next to the photographer's assistant, holding my clutch, watching them rearrange themselves. They moved closer together to fill the gap where I had been. My mother linked arms with Miranda. My father placed a hand on Jonathan's shoulder. They looked perfect, complete, like they had never had a second daughter at all. Beautiful, the photographer yelled. That's the money shot. I turned away. I couldn't watch anymore. The guests were beginning to drift toward the reception tent. It was an enormous structure on the south lawn, glowing from within like a giant paper lantern. Through the open flaps, I could see crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. I could see tables draped in ivory linen, set with silver chargers and crystal wine glasses. I could smell the food. Filet mignon, truffle oil. It smelled rich and warm. I was hungry. I hadn't eaten since breakfast. I started walking toward the tent, moving with the crowd. I didn't know where else to go. A few steps from the entrance, a staff member stepped into my path. It was a different young man this time, but the look on his face was the same. Apologetic. Firm. Excuse me, ma'am, he said. May I see your badge? I held up the gray card. His face fell. I'm sorry, ma'am. This badge doesn't grant access to the reception area. Gold badges only. I know, I said. My voice was calm. I just wanted to... I didn't finish the sentence. What did I want? Did I want to beg? Did I want to explain that I had saved $10,000 for people inside that tent? Over his shoulder, I saw the reception in full swing. Waiters were carrying trays of champagne. Guests were laughing. And then I saw Miranda. She was walking past the entrance, holding a glass of champagne, laughing at something a bridesmaid was saying. She looked radiant. She looked right at me. Our eyes met through the crowd. Me, in my off-the-rack navy dress with my gray badge. Her, in her couture gown with her gold-plated life. For one single second, I thought she might stop. I thought she might remember that I was her sister. I thought she might tell the staff member, "Let her in. She's family." She didn't. She looked at me, her eyes sliding over my face like I was a piece of furniture, and then she looked away. She turned her back and kept walking deeper into the tent, into the warmth, into the party where I wasn't welcome. That was the moment. That was the moment the last thread snapped. The staff member shifted awkwardly. "Ma'am, if you'd like to wait for a taxi at the front gate, I can call a cart for you." "That won't be necessary," I said. I stepped back. "I'm not trying to get in." He looked relieved. "Thank you, ma'am." I turned away from the tent. I walked toward the east side of the lawn, away from the music, away from the laughter. I walked toward the gift table. It was sitting under a small canopy, separate from the main tent. It was covered in silk. It was pile-high with boxes wrapped in silver and gold paper. There was a sign in calligraphy that read, "Blessings from Miranda and Jonathan." My envelope was in there somewhere. Or it would have been if I had followed instructions. But I hadn't dropped it off yet. It was still in my hand. I saw a figure standing near the table, waiting in the shadows of a large oak tree. It was Aunt Diane. She was wearing a simple burgundy dress. She looked elegant but tired. When she saw me, she stepped forward. "How are you holding up?" she asked softly. I looked at the tent, glowing in the twilight. I looked at the gray badge on my chest. "They don't want me," I said. Miranda looked right at me, Aunt Diane. She saw me being stopped. She didn't do a thing. Aunt Diane sighed. She reached out and took my hand. Her fingers were warm. "I know, honey. I saw it too. I'm going to leave," I said. "I think that's a good idea." "But not yet," I added. I looked at the gift table. It was unsupervised. The staff were all busy guarding the tent entrance. No one was watching the gifts. "I need to do one thing first," I said. Aunt Diane followed my gaze to the table. Then she looked at the clutch in my hand. She saw the white edge of the envelope sticking out. She understood immediately. "You didn't drop it off," she whispered. "No, and you aren't going to." "No," I said. "I'm keeping it, and I'm going to make sure they know exactly what they lost." Aunt Diane looked at me. For a moment, I thought she might tell me to be the bigger person. I thought she might tell me to just leave quietly and not cause a stir. Instead, she squeezed my hand tighter. A small, fierce smile appeared on her face. "Do it," she said. "Really? They made you invisible, Waverly. Maybe it's time you made yourself seen." My heart started to race. Not with fear, but with adrenaline. "I'll be right here," Aunt Diane said. "I'll watch your back." I took a deep breath. The evening air was cool, but my face felt hot. I walked toward the gift table. I wasn't sneaking. I wasn't hiding. I walked with my head up. I reached the table. I saw the mountain of expensive gifts. The crystal bowls, the espresso machines, the silverware sets. And there, right in the front, was the slotted box for cards and envelopes. I held my envelope over the slot. This was the point of no return. If I dropped it in, I was playing by their rules. I was buying their love, even when they refused to feed me. If I put it back in my bag, I was declaring war. I looked at the name on the envelope. Miranda and Jonathan. I thought about the winter coat I stitched back together. I thought about the 3 years of missed vacations. I thought about the no-meal note. I pulled the envelope back. I opened my clutch. I slid the envelope inside and snapped it shut. And that is when I heard the clicking of heels on the stone path behind me. "Waverly." The voice was sharp, confused. I turned around. My mother was standing there. She had a glass of champagne in one hand. She was staring at my clutch. She had seen me. "What are you doing?" she asked. Her voice rose, attracting the attention of a few guests standing nearby. "Did you just take something from the table?" I smiled. It was the first real smile I had smiled all day. "Hello, Mother," I said. "Before I tell you what happened in the confrontation that followed, I want to pause. This is the moment where everything changes. I had the evidence. I had the money. And now I had her attention. If you were in my shoes, standing in front of the mother who excluded you, holding the money she desperately wanted, what is the first thing you would say? A, I'm taking my money back. B, why am I not allowed to eat? C, nothing. Just walk away and let her wonder. Type your answer in the comments. I read every single one. Part 7 is where the explosion happens. The truth comes out, and the perfect family image is about to get very, very messy. I asked you a question, my mother hissed. She took a step closer, her heels sinking slightly into the soft grass. What are you doing? I clutched my bag against my chest. The leather felt cool and smooth under my fingers. I am taking back what belongs to me, I said. My voice was steady, clearer than it had been in years. My mother's eyes darted around, checking if anyone important was watching. A few guests near the trellis were glancing our way, drawn by the tension radiating off her like heat waves. You can't do that, she whispered furiously. That is a gift. You brought it here. It belongs to the couple now. It hasn't been given yet. I corrected her. The envelope hasn't been opened. The check hasn't been cashed. Legally and morally, it is still mine. This is ridiculous, she snapped. Put it back. Right now, before you embarrass yourself. Embarrass myself? I let out a short, dry laugh. Mom, I am wearing a badge that tells the world I'm not good enough to eat dinner with my family. I think we are past the point of embarrassment. Lower your voice, she commanded. I didn't lower my voice. I didn't raise it, either. I kept it at a normal, conversational volume, the volume of someone who has nothing to hide. I'm leaving, Mom. I'm taking my gift and I'm going home. You are being selfish, she said, her face flushing pink. After everything we've done for you. Everything you've done for me? I interrupted. You mean cropping me out of photos? You mean forgetting my graduation? You mean inviting me to a wedding just to starve me? She opened her mouth to argue, but suddenly there was a presence beside us. Sophie walked past. She was wearing her headset, looking busy and professional, like she was rushing to solve a crisis with cake. She didn't stop. She didn't make eye contact with my mother, but as she brushed past me, her hand grazed mine. In one smooth motion, she pressed a folded piece of paper into my palm. I knew exactly what it was. It was a printout of the seating chart note, the evidence. I slid it into my clutch next to the envelope. Patricia? A new voice cut through the tension. It was a voice like expensive velvet, soft but heavy with authority. I turned. Eleanor Whitmore stood there, the mother of the groom. She was a striking woman, tall and silver-haired, wearing a navy gown that was understated and impeccably tailored. She wore a single strand of pearls that were likely real natural pearls, not cultured. Her eyes were sharp, intelligent, and currently fixed on my mother. My mother froze. The transformation was instant. The snarl vanished from her face, replaced by a terrified, fragile smile. Eleanor, she chirped, is everything all right? I was about to ask you the same thing, Eleanor said. She didn't look at my mother. She looked at me. I heard raised voices. Oh, it's nothing, my mother said quickly, waving her hand. Just a small family misunderstanding. Waverly was just leaving. Eleanor's gaze dropped to my chest. She squinted slightly, reading the gray card pinned to my dress. Waverly, she said, testing the name. You are Miranda's sister, aren't you? Yes, ma'am, I said. And what is that on your dress? Eleanor asked. I haven't seen that color badge today. My mother stepped between us, trying to block Eleanor's view. It's just a vendor pass, Eleanor. A logistical thing. Waverly didn't RSVP in time for the full reception, so we had to make arrangements. I stared at the back of my mother's head. The lie came so easily to her. Didn't RSVP in time. I stepped around my mother. I wanted Eleanor to see me. I wanted her to see everything. That isn't true, I said. My mother spun around, her eyes widening in warning. Waverly, stop. I RSVP'd 3 months ago. I said, Eleanor. I requested the time off work. I bought a train ticket. I bought a dress. I pointed to the badge. My mother had this made for me because she didn't want me at the reception. I said, it says limited access. I was told it means I'm allowed to watch the ceremony, but I am not allowed to eat or drink with the guests. Eleanor went very still. She looked from the badge to my mother. Is this true, Patricia? She asked. Her voice was cool, detached. It's complicated. My mother stammered. We had strict numbers, Eleanor. You know how tight the guest list was. We couldn't fit everyone. We fit my second cousin from London, Eleanor said. We fit Jonathan's fraternity brothers. Are you telling me there was no room for the bride's own sister? It wasn't just about room, my mother whispered, desperate now. It was appearances. Appearances? Eleanor raised an eyebrow. We wanted everything to be perfect for you, my mother said, her voice trembling. Waverly she is in a different place in life. We didn't want to cause any friction. I see, Eleanor said. So you excluded her to impress me? My mother nodded, thinking she had found a lifeline. Yes, exactly. We wanted to respect your standards. Eleanor's expression turned into something resembling ice. Patricia, she said softly, my standards involve treating family with dignity. I don't care if your daughter is a CEO or a street sweeper. You did not invite someone to a wedding and refuse to feed them. My mother turned pale, and then things got worse. Miranda appeared at the entrance of the tent. She must have sensed a disturbance, or maybe someone fetched her. She swept toward us in a cloud of white tulle, looking flushed and angry. Jonathan trailed behind her, looking confused and holding a half-empty glass of scotch. What is going on? Miranda demanded. Why is everyone standing by the gift table? Mom? Eleanor? She looked at me, and her lip curled. Waverly, why are you still here? I thought you were leaving. I was trying to, I said. She was stealing, my mother blurted out. She pointed a shaking finger at my clutch. She was taking her gift back. Miranda's eyes went wide. You what? I took my envelope back. I said calmly, you can't do that. Miranda shrieked. That's tacky, Waverly. Even for you, that is low. Is it? I asked. I opened my clutch. My hands were not shaking anymore. I pulled out the envelope. Do you know what is inside this? I asked my sister. I don't care, she spat. Probably a gift card for $20. No, I said. It is a cashier's check. I ripped the envelope open. The sound was loud in the sudden silence of the garden. The string quartet had stopped playing. Guests were gathering, watching the scene unfold. I pulled out the check and unfolded it. I held it up so Miranda, Jonathan, and Eleanor could see the numbers printed on the line. $10,000, I said. Miranda stopped breathing. Her mouth fell open slightly. Jonathan's eyebrows shot up. I saved this for 3 years. I told him. I turned to look at the small crowd that had gathered. I work as an accountant. I make $52,000 a year. I didn't take a vacation for 3 years. I sold my own clothes. I ate peanut butter for lunch every single day. I looked back at Miranda. I did that because I wanted to give you something beautiful. I wanted to prove that I loved you. I wanted to show you that I was your sister and I would always support you. Tears started to well up in Miranda's eyes. Not tears of sadness, but tears of shock. 10,000, she whispered. Yes, I said, but then I got here, and I got this badge. I tapped the gray card on my chest, and then I found out about the note. I reached into my clutch again and pulled out the piece of paper Sophie had given me. Sophie found this on the master seating chart. I said, in Mom's handwriting. I read it aloud. Guests will receive limited access badge. No meal. I handed the note to Eleanor. She took it, read it, and looked at my mother with pure disgust. You wanted my money, I said to my mother and sister. You asked me to mail it in advance so you could take credit for it. But you didn't want me to sit at a table and eat chicken. You didn't want me to be seen. Waverly, wait, Miranda said. She took a step toward me. Her voice changed. It wasn't angry anymore. It was greedy. We didn't know. We didn't know it was that much. Would it have mattered if it was $50? I asked. Miranda didn't answer. That was answer enough. If I had given $50, would I still be starving right now? I asked. Yes, I would. Jonathan. Miranda turned to her husband, panic rising in her voice. Do something. Jonathan looked at the check in my hand. Then he looked at his mother, Eleanor. Eleanor shook her head slightly. I think, Jonathan said awkwardly, that this is a family matter, Miranda. I don't think I should get involved. Smart man, I said. I folded the check. I put it back in my clutch. I snapped it shut. I'm keeping this. I said, I'm going to use it to move to a better apartment. I'm going to take a vacation. I'm going to buy a coat that actually keeps me warm. You can't, my mother cried out. She actually reached for me. That is a wedding gift. It belongs to them. I took a step back. The wedding gift is for family, I said, and as you have made very clear today, I am not family. I am just a guest with limited access. I turned to Aunt Diane. I'm ready to go now, I said. Waverly, Miranda screamed. Don't you dare walk away. You are ruining my wedding. I stopped. I looked back at her one last time. She looked ridiculous in her $20,000 dress, crying over a check she hadn't earned. I'm not ruining your wedding, Miranda, I said softly. You ruined it the moment you decided I wasn't good enough to be here. I turned around and started walking down the white gravel driveway. Aunt Diane fell into step beside me. Behind us, I heard my mother start to sob. I heard Eleanor Whitmore say, in a voice that carried across the lawn, Patricia, I think we need to have a serious conversation about your definition of appearances. I didn't look back. The walk to the gate felt like floating. My legs were light. The air tasted sweet. But the story doesn't end at the gate, because as I was waiting for my taxi, a car came speeding down the driveway. The chaos erupted the moment we cleared the rose garden. I could hear the sounds of the reception attempting to restart behind us. The string quartet began playing something upbeat and desperate, as if they could restore normalcy through sheer musical willpower. I heard my mother's voice rising to a shriek, quickly shushed by someone else. Don't look back, Aunt Diane murmured. She kept her hand on my shoulder, propelling me forward. Just keep walking. But I did look back. Just once. My father was standing at the edge of the tent, watching me leave. He wasn't running after me. He wasn't yelling at my mother to stop. He was just standing there, his hands deep in his pockets, his face a mask of helpless sorrow. He looked torn. He looked like a man who knew he should do something, but had forgotten how to be brave 30 years ago. For a moment, a foolish, childish part of me thought he might finally move. I thought he might run down that white gravel driveway and choose me. He didn't. He turned his back on me and walked back to my mother's side. Aunt Diane squeezed my shoulder hard. I know, sweetheart, she whispered. I know. We reached the front gate. The taxi I had called that morning, back when I still had hope, back when I thought I might need a ride after the reception, was waiting. It was a beat-up yellow sedan, a stark contrast to the line of gleaming black luxury cars parked nearby. The driver, the same man who had dropped me off hours earlier, looked up from his newspaper. He raised an eyebrow as we climbed into back seat. Short party, huh? He asked. Something like that. I said, where to? The train station. I said, and please just drive. As the car pulled away, crunching over the gravel, I turned to watch the Whitmore estate shrink in the rear window. The white columns, the manicured hedges, the golden tint glowing against the afternoon sky. It looked like a castle. And like most castles, it was built to keep people out. I waited for the relief to hit me. I waited for the rush of adrenaline, the feeling of victory. But I felt nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction. Just an enormous, exhausted emptiness. It felt like I had been carrying a heavy stone for 32 years, and I had finally put it down, but my muscles were still cramping from the weight. What happens now? I asked quietly. Aunt Diane took my hand. Now, She said, "You start your life." We were a quarter-mile down the private road, surrounded by tall oak trees, when I heard the honking. The driver glanced in his mirror. Someone is in a hurry. A white SUV with the Whitmore Estate logo on the door was tearing down the road behind us. It flashed its high beams. It swerved into the left lane and cut in front of our taxi, forcing the driver to slam on the brakes. We skidded to a halt. "Crazy people," the driver muttered. Before I could react, the back door of the SUV flew open. Miranda jumped out. She was still in her wedding dress. The hem was stained with grass and dirt. Her veil was crooked. Mascara was streaking down her cheeks in black rivers. She didn't look like a princess anymore. She looked like a desperate woman who had lost control of her script. She ran to my window and pounded on the glass. "Waverly, stop. Open the door." I looked at Aunt Diane. She gave me a small nod. "Your choice." I rolled down the window. "You have to come back," Miranda gasped. She was breathless. "Right now, you have to come back and fix this." I stared at her. "There is nothing to fix, Miranda." "Yes, there is." Her voice cracked. "Eleanor is furious." She pulled Mom into the library. "Jonathan's father is asking questions about the guest list. Everyone is whispering. You have to come back and tell them it was a joke or a misunderstanding." I almost laughed. Even now, standing in the dirt in her wedding gown, she was only thinking about herself. She wasn't sorry she had hurt me. She was sorry she had gotten caught. "A misunderstanding?" I repeated. "Yes. Just tell them. Tell them you lost your badge. Tell them Mom made a mistake with the seating chart. Please, Waverly." She grabbed the doorframe, her knuckles white. "Mom won't stop crying. She's hysterical." "That sounds like a problem for Mom," I said. "Not for me." "How can you be so cold?" Miranda sobbed. "I'm your sister." That word again. Sister. "Yes," I said. "You are." "And you stood there and watched me get stopped by security. You walked right past me. You knew I was hungry. You knew I was excluded. And you didn't care until I took the money away." "It was complicated," she screamed. "You don't understand the pressure. Jonathan's family is... They judge everything. We just wanted it to be perfect." "I know," I said. "And I wasn't perfect enough for you." I looked at her. Really looked at her. The golden child. The Harvard graduate. The success story. She looked small. "I saved $10,000 for you," I said softly. "I ate peanut butter sandwiches for 3 years. And you couldn't even give me a meal." "Waverly, please." "Go back to your wedding, Miranda." I said, "Your guests are waiting. I'm sure you can find someone else to pay for the honeymoon." I looked at the driver. "Drive." "No," Miranda shouted. She tried to reach through the window. I rolled it up. The driver stepped on the gas. We swerved around the SUV and accelerated down the road. I didn't look back this time. My phone started ringing before we reached the main highway. Mom. Dad. Mom. Miranda. Mom. My screen lit up over and over again. I silenced them all. I stared out the window at the Connecticut countryside rolling by. Stone walls. Horses grazing in fields. Houses that cost millions of dollars. "You are allowed to feel things," Aunt Diane said quietly. "This isn't nothing, Waverly. You just cut off a limb." "I know," I swallowed. The lump in my throat was back. "But I can't feel it yet. If I feel it, I might tell the driver to turn around." My phone rang again. This time, the name on the screen made me pause. Dad. Something in me. Some old, childish hope that maybe he understood, maybe he was different, made me answer. "Hello, Waverly." His voice was thin, strained. I could hear background noise. People talking, clinking glasses. He was hiding somewhere. Maybe a hallway. "Hi, Dad." "Please come back," he said. He sounded exhausted. "Your mother she is not handling this well, Waverly. She is shaking. She can't breathe." I closed my eyes. "Is she?" I asked. "We need to present a united front," he said. "Eleanor Whitmore is threatening to leave the reception early. It looks bad, Waverly. It looks very bad. Just come back, apologize for the scene, and we can smooth this over. The anger hit me then. It wasn't the hot, fiery anger from the garden. It was a cold, deep anger, the kind that settles in your bones. Apologize? I asked, you want me to apologize? For the scene, he clarified quickly. Not for... Look, I know you're upset about the badge. That was unfortunate. But you didn't have to humiliate your mother. Unfortunate, I repeated. Dad, they gave me a gray badge. They told me I couldn't eat. They wanted my money, but not my presents. I didn't know about the badge, he said weakly. You didn't ask. My voice broke. I hated that it broke. In 32 years, Dad, you have never once asked. You just let Mom handle it. You let Miranda be the star. And you stood there and watched me drown. I love you, Waverly, he said, but it sounded like a script. Do you? I asked, because you watched me walk away today. You watched your wife treat me like a servant, and you did nothing. You're doing nothing right now except asking me to come back and be a doormat so Mom stops crying. You can't just cut off your family, he said. His voice hardened slightly. We are your parents. I looked at Aunt Diane. She was watching me, her eyes filled with a fierce, protective pride. I'm not coming back, Dad. I said, not today. Maybe not ever. Waverly, be reasonable. I am being reasonable, I said. I am finally treating myself with the same respect you treat Miranda. If you hang up this phone, he said, and I heard the fear in his voice, it's going to be very hard to fix this. I'm not trying to fix it anymore, Dad. I said, I'm trying to survive it. Waverly. Goodbye, Dad. I pressed the red button. The silence in the taxi was absolute. I put the phone down on the seat between us. My hand was shaking so badly I couldn't hold it anymore. Aunt Diane didn't say anything. She just reached over, picked up the phone, and turned it off completely. You can have this back later, she said. When you're ready. I leaned my head back against the seat. I watched the trees blur into green streaks. I had done it. I had really done it. I had burned the bridge. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't looking for a bucket of water to put the fire out. I was just watching it burn. But the hardest part wasn't the confrontation. The hardest part wasn't the car chase. The hardest part is what happens when the adrenaline fades, and you are left sitting on a train platform with a navy dress and a broken heart, realizing that the people who were supposed to love you the most are the ones you have to run away from. We were 5 minutes from the station. I turned to Aunt Diane. They are going to hate me, I whispered. Some of them will, she said honestly. But Waverly, they didn't treat you with love to begin with. You can't lose something you never really had. That was the truth, the quiet truth. And you have something else now, she added. What? She tapped the clutch in my lap. You have a future, and you have $10,000 to start it. We pulled up to the station. The train to New York City was due in 10 minutes. As I stepped out of the taxi, I felt a vibration, not from my phone, that was off, but from inside me, a deep, shuddering breath. I was free, but freedom is a scary thing when you have spent your whole life in a cage. Have you ever had to block a family member's number? Have you ever had to choose between their happiness and your sanity? If you have, type yes in the comments. Let's show each other how many of us have had to make that hard choice. The aftermath was coming. The weeks that followed would bring silence, guilt, and eventually a letter that changed everything. The tears didn't come until we reached the train station. Aunt Diane had insisted on riding back to the city with me. She left her car at the estate, telling me she would figure out later. I'd rather pay for a towing service than let you ride that train alone, she said. We sat in a quiet corner of the Metro North platform. It was late afternoon now. The commuters were thinning out. A few tourists with shopping bags were laughing nearby, completely unaware that my entire world had just collapsed and rebuilt itself in the span of 2 hours. I actually did it, I said. My voice sounded strange in my own ears. Thin. High. Like a child's voice. I actually took the envelope and walked out. You did, Aunt Diane said. They are going to hate me. Aunt Diane pulled me close. She smelled like roses and rain. Some of them will, she said gently. But, sweetheart, they weren't treating you with love to begin with. You can't lose something you never had. That was when I broke. It wasn't the delicate, photogenic cry my mother produced on command. It was ugly. It was heaving sobs that shook my whole body. I cried until my ribs hurt. I cried for the graduation they missed. I cried for the family portrait they cropped me out of. I cried for the 18-year-old girl who sat in an Italian restaurant with her aunt because her parents were too busy for her. I cried for the 32 years I had spent believing that if I just loved them hard enough, if I just gave enough money, if I just made myself small enough, they would finally love me back. It was never going to be enough, was it? No, honey, Aunt Diane said, stroking my hair. It wasn't. Some people aren't capable of seeing value in others. That is a failure in them, not in you. The train arrived with a screech of brakes. We boarded in silence. As the lush green scenery of Connecticut gave way to the gray edges of New York City, my phone buzzed one more time. Aunt Diane had turned it back on for me. I glanced at the screen. It was a text from Sophie. Eleanor pulled Miranda and your mom into a private room after you left. No one knows what was said, but Miranda was sobbing when she came out. Your mom looks like a ghost. I think things are about to change for your family. I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I put my phone away and closed my eyes. The next 3 days were a blur of silence and noise. I turned off my notifications, but I could see the counter climbing every time I touched the screen. Missed calls, 47. Texts, over 100. Voicemails that I couldn't bring myself to listen to. On Monday, I went to my bank during my lunch break. I walked up to the teller window. A different woman this time. I slid the envelope across the counter. I need to void this cashier's check, I said, and deposit the funds back into my savings account. The teller looked at the check. Change of plans. Yes, I said. A big change of plans. I'm keeping the money, I added, mostly to myself. That evening, Aunt Diane called. I've been hearing things, she said. Her voice was steady, grounding. Eleanor Whitmore had a very long conversation with your mother after you left. Your mother called me this morning to blame me for encouraging you. What did you say? I asked. I told her I didn't encourage anything. You made your own choice. But I also told her that if she had treated you with basic dignity, none of this would have happened. How did she take that? She hung up on me, and Diane said, so about as expected. I almost laughed. It was a dark, tired laugh. What about Miranda? From what I heard, the honeymoon has been tense, Aunt Diane said. Eleanor said something to Miranda privately. No one knows exactly what, but apparently the perfect family image has been shattered. Jonathan is trying to smooth things over, but Eleanor, she doesn't forget. She realized she was buying into a lie. I processed this in silence. Part of me wanted to feel vindicated. I wanted to feel like justice had been served. But mostly I just felt tired. What do I do now? I asked. You moved forward, Waverly. You spent 32 years waiting for them to change. Now you stop waiting. I looked around my tiny studio apartment. The cramped kitchen. The view of the brick wall. The empty envelope holder on my desk. I think I could do that, I said. 2 weeks after the wedding, 3 things happened that confirmed I was on the right path. First, my promotion came through. I had been working toward the senior accountant position for almost 2 years. My boss, a practical woman named Margaret who had no patience for drama, called me into her office on a Tuesday afternoon. You've earned this, Waverly, she said. Whatever is going on in your personal life, you've never let it affect your work. You are reliable. You are sharp. She slid a folder across her desk. 12% raise. New title. You start next month. I missed her hand when I went to shake it because my eyes were blurry. I managed not to cry until I reached the bathroom. It was the first time in weeks that someone had told me I was valuable. Second, my mother left a voicemail. I had been deleting them unheard, but something about the transcription of this one made me pause. Her voice was different. It wasn't the sharp, controlling tone I was used to. It wasn't the socialite. It sounded thinner. Fragile. Waverly, I know you aren't listening to these, but I need you to know that Eleanor spoke to me about family, about how we treat each other. A long pause. I don't agree with everything she said, but I've been thinking. Maybe we should talk. I don't want to lose you. I saved the voicemail. I didn't call back. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I saved it. Third, my father sent an email. It wasn't the family group chat. It was just to me, private, Waverly. I don't know how to say this, so I will just say it. I am sorry. I should have protected you. I should have spoken up when you were given that badge. I should have spoken up years ago. I didn't, and that is a failure I will have to live with. I am not asking you to forgive me. I am just asking you to know that I see it now. I see what we did. If you ever want to talk, I am here. Dad, I read the email 7 times. I didn't respond. Forgiveness isn't a light switch you can just flip on. But I saved it to a folder on my laptop labeled Maybe Someday. 1 month after the wedding, I finally wrote the email I had been composing in my head for years. I sat in my favorite coffee shop, a tiny place near my apartment that made excellent flat whites. I watched the people walking by outside. I felt calm. I opened my laptop and started typing. Dear Mom, Dad, and Miranda, I am not writing this to hurt you. I am writing because I need you to understand something. I am not angry anymore. Anger takes energy, and I have spent too many years giving my energy to people who didn't value it. What I feel now is something closer to clarity. For 32 years, I tried to earn a place in this family. I was quiet when I should have spoken up. I gave when I should have held back. I accepted treatment that I would never have tolerated from strangers because I believed that family meant enduring pain. I was wrong. Family means choosing each other. It means showing up even when it is inconvenient. It means treating someone with dignity, especially when no one is watching. You didn't choose me, and I can't make you, but I can choose myself. And that is what I am doing now. This isn't a door closing forever, but it is a door that finally has a lock on it. If any of you ever want a real relationship, one built on respect, not obligation, you know how to reach me. But until then, I'm going to live my life. I wish you well. I truly do. Waverly. I CC'd Aunt Diane. Then I hit send. I sat there for a moment, watching the sent notification fade from the screen. I finished my coffee. I paid my bill, and I walked out into the autumn sunshine. The air felt crisp. The city sounded loud and alive. I had $10,000 in the bank. I had a new job title. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for permission to be happy. But the story doesn't end with an email. Because 6 weeks later, I used that money to do something that would change my life completely. 6 weeks after the wedding, I moved. I didn't move to a mansion in Greenwich. I didn't move to a penthouse. I moved to a 1-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn. It had actual closet space. It had a kitchen where 2 people could stand at the same time. But the most important thing was the window. For 4 years, I had stared at a brick wall. Now, I looked out onto a small park. I could see trees. I could see the sky. I could see children playing on the swings and old men playing chess on the benches. The rent was higher, yes, but I could afford it now, partly because of my promotion and partly because I had a $10,000 safety net that wasn't going anywhere else. Aunt Diane drove down from Hartford to help me unpack. We spent the whole day arranging furniture, hanging curtains, and arguing about the best placement for the succulent collection I had decided to start. This one needs more light, she said, holding up a stubborn little plant. And this corner gets good afternoon sun. Trust me, Waverly, I have been growing things for 40 years. I know where they thrive. I smiled. Okay, you win. I let her win that argument. I let her mother me. For the first time, it didn't feel like I was imposing. It felt like affection. Around sunset, we took a break. We sat on my new balcony. It was really just a fire escape, but we called it a balcony, with glasses of cheap white wine. Below us, the city was settling into that golden hour glow. Normal life. Ordinary joy. I brought you something, Aunt Diane said. She reached into her purse and pulled out a small, rectangular object wrapped in tissue paper. "I found this when I was cleaning out my desk last week," she said. I unwrapped it. It was a framed photograph. It was me, 18 years old, wearing a blue graduation gown, clutching my diploma to my chest. I was smiling, but my eyes were red. It was taken right after the ceremony, right after I realized my parents weren't coming. I stared at the image. I remember that girl. I remembered how small she felt, how invisible. "You took this?" I asked. "I did," Andian said, "and I kept it on my desk for 15 years. "Why?" "Because," she said, looking out at the park, "I wanted to remember the girl who kept standing even when no one was watching. I was so proud of you that day, Waverly. You didn't have anyone in the bleachers, but you walked across that stage like you owned it." She touched the glass of the frame gently. "I figure it was time this photo hung somewhere it belongs. Somewhere it is celebrated." I felt a tear slide down my cheek. But it wasn't a sad tear. It was a healing tear. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything, for being there when they weren't." Aunt Diane put her arm around my shoulder. She pulled me close. "That is what family does, sweetheart," she said. "Real family." I hung the photo above my desk that night. For the first time in 32 years, I looked forward to coming home. I have had a lot of time to think about why my family did what they did. I used to think it was about me. I used to think I wasn't smart enough, or pretty enough, or successful enough. I thought if I could just fix myself, they would love me. But sitting in my new apartment, watching the sun go down over the trees, I finally understood. It was never about me. My mother, Patricia, grew up in a house where status was oxygen. Her parents measured worth in titles and tax brackets. When she failed to marry into old money, she felt like a failure. When Miranda married into the Whitmore family, my mother saw her own redemption. She saw a second chance to live the life she felt she deserved. Psychologists have a term for this. It is called vicarious achievement. It is when parents live through their children's success because they feel inadequate about their own lives. Mom couldn't climb the social ladder herself, so she attached herself to Miranda's journey. Miranda became the vessel for all her hopes. And anyone who threatened that narrative, anyone who looked average or distracting, like her accountant daughter, became expendable. And Miranda wasn't malicious. She was complicit. She grew up believing the world owed her more because she achieved more. She grew up in a system that rewarded her for being perfect and punished me for being present. When Mom suggested downgrading my role at the wedding, Miranda didn't object because objecting would have cost her something. Golden children don't question the systems that benefit them. And Dad was the enabler, the man who keeps the peace by never taking sides. But what he never understood is that in a war between an abuser and a victim, silence is not neutral. Silence is a choice. By refusing to defend me, he chose her every single time. But here is the most important thing I have learned. Understanding why someone hurt you doesn't mean you have to accept it. You can understand that your mother is insecure and still refuse to let her treat you like a servant. You can understand that your sister is under pressure and still refuse to be starred at her wedding. Compassion and boundaries can coexist. I don't hate my family. I pity them a little. They are trapped in a house built on conditional love, and they can't even see the walls. They are performing a play for an audience that doesn't care. But I am not trapped anymore. I am sitting on my fire escape in Brooklyn. I am drinking wine with my aunt. I have a job that values me. I have a home that is mine. I am free. If you are watching this right now, and you have been waiting for permission, I want to give it to you. If you are the one who is always giving and never receiving. If you are the one who is always waiting for them to change. If you are the one sitting in the last row while they take the family photos without you, listen to me. You are allowed to stop trying. You are allowed to love people and still leave them. You are allowed to protect your peace. You are allowed to choose yourself. And you are never, ever obligated to sit at a table where you are not full. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for walking this road with me, from the gift table to the train station to this balcony. If this story made you feel less lonely, please leave a comment below. Type A, if you have already set boundaries with your family. Type B, if you're working towards it. Type C, if you needed to hear this today. I read all the comments, and I find so much strength in your stories. And if you want to hear more stories about finding your voice and standing your ground, please subscribe to the channel. There's a new story waiting for you in the description right now. Until next time, take care of yourself. No one else can do it like you can. Goodbye, and see you in the next video.